And I told him what a stupid idea I thought that was. But the idea stuck and it grew, and I began to take it seriously. And that's when the fear started growing, because I was going to have to give up the car and the salary and the share options and the pensions and all this stuff. So there was a financial concern. But actually the bigger concern, I remember doing this with an electric shaver, thinking, who the hell is going to buy your books? Who the hell is going to want to be coached by you? And I turned to my wife, who was reading a magazine in bed. I said, I'm having a bit of a wobble here, love. I'm just beginning to wonder, because I'd resigned by then, but I hadn't gone. We were waiting 3 or 4 months before I departed. I'm having a bit of a wobble. I'm not sure I've done the right thing. And she just looked up from a magazine and said, oh, you as well, huh? So, the answer is, I was scared. My ego was on the line. Was I about to be exposed as a fraud? But I just felt intuitively there was something so strong. I had to make this change. I think this is one of the keys to success. If you can recognize your intuition, which is itself a problem, trust it, go with it. It's a bit like that Indiana Jones film where he has to step into the void, and in fact there's a hidden bridge. It was like that moment. So it was very scary, and I was very uncomfortable at the time, Otis.
Talking about making that change, and the fear aspect there. Could you talk some about and I'm going to leave this. It might be a little vague, but with your psychology background, I'm hoping you can run with this, which is the interplay of the ego and the fear. The idea that a lot of time we'll talk about, it's like you don't want to listen to the ego, but the ego is also the thing that likely drove you away from the corporate safety blanket. The ego is to some extent the thing that drives you forward, while also being the thing that creates that fear. Could you talk a little bit about that interplay?
Well, you're actually really getting into sophisticated stuff there. What you call ego, I call the full self, because the word ego is used in different ways. Sometimes it's used in spiritual language. Sometimes there's Freudian ego, the reality principle. So for me, there's the essential you. I call it a self. Some people call it a conscious you. But there's you as a center of consciousness. There's me as a center of consciousness. This is the facility in me that knows that I am a distinct center, as opposed to you, Cam, and you, Otis. It's what allows you to say I and experience I am. In fact, it's your constant experience. And then there are, this is the best way I can think of putting it, then there are the words that come after I am. So there is your center of consciousness, which is you and your will. And then there is what you put in that center. I am not good enough. I am a CEO. I am a man, or whatever. So I'm distinguishing between your ability to know yourself as a center of consciousness, the I amness, and then there's the stuff that you tell yourself about yourself, the content, the narrative. What I remember wrestling with at the time was being aware of this fear of being exposed and knowing that was my full self, because there was a part of me that still didn't feel I was good enough and was risking that being exposed. And there's a technical word for it called disidentification. You recognize there's that fear in you. You tug on that fear because your emotions are information. You tug on that, and it took me back to there's still that part of me that believes you're not good enough, and this time, finally, you're going to be exposed. And simply that moment of recognizing that there's this content, there's me looking at the content, that pulls you out of it, and it increases your power. It increases your sense of choice. So that's how I wrestled with it. I looked at it. It didn't make it vanish, but it made it manageable, Cam.
Do you think that fear and like the negative self-talk is the other side of the coin for aspiration?
Yes, it is, unfortunately. And I would say pretty much all of my clients, and this was my story when I was younger, they're propelling themselves up the ladder and are chasing success because they've not realized it psychologically. They've basically decided, I'm not good enough, therefore I'm likely to fail. But these people say, I am absolutely not going to fail. Failure is not an option. I'm going to give myself continual experiences of success after success after success. But so that actually gets them to one point. But there is a guy in America, a coach in America, who wrote a book. I think the title is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There," and he got it bang on. That fire which gets you up to a certain level is the very thing that can cause you to over control people, micromanage people, put too much pressure on them and cause them to collapse. So it gets you to a certain point, and then it becomes the limiting factor. That's one of the fascinating things about coaching leaders and their teams.
Yeah, that guy's Marshall Goldsmith. I love his work.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And then what an amazing book. Truthfully, just the title of the book. You can just read the title and learn from that and start to adopt that, because everything has to change and grow. And I think that's such a powerful thing in that shift and understanding. And that there's so many different ways of that separating and realizing that doesn't have to be you. It's a feeling that you have. And I'm pointing because if I say it's in here, then it is my identity, but it's not. It's that thing over there, and I can see it, and I can still have it and know it's there, but I don't have to be it. And that's the work that's the heavy lifting of it all.